So good morning, my name is Bob Flax, and for those of you who I haven't met, I'm the president of the Democratic World Federalists, and along with the two other organizations that are sponsoring this event today, Citizens for Global Solutions and the Social Justice Center of Marin, we all want to welcome you to be here. We chose today because today is the 71st anniversary, I'll call it an anniversary, of the bombing of Hiroshima. And 3 days later, just to give it the second punch, we bombed Nagasaki, in total killing at least 129,000 people, and also putting an end to World War II. Following World War II, as you might imagine, many people were talking about how to make sure we never have a World War III. And most of those conversations turned into the UN, the United Nations, as we know it today. And as you know, the UN was founded right there in the first line of the charter to end the scourge of war. Well, it was successful in that we didn't have World War III. We're all still here, thank God. But nevertheless, between the signing of the charter and now, there's been something like 250 wars on the planet. So clearly, for all the good that the UN has done, it has had its limitations, in some cases severe limitations. However, back then, right after World War II, there was another proposal that was floating around out there that somehow has evaporated from history. It's not found in most of the textbooks, it's not talked about in the schools, but people like Albert Einstein, Eleanor Roosevelt, Gandhi, and others supported this other option. And that was to create a democratically elected global parliament. So what that means is when you go to vote, and we're all going to be doing that soon, can't forget that these days, just turn on the TV. So when you and I go to vote, you would be voting not only for your local city mayor and your state governor and the president and the Congress, but you would also be electing at that time your representatives to the global parliament. And at that level, at the global level, there would be a constitution, a bill of rights, a judicial system, and all the structures and tools at the global level that individual countries have to solve their problems, but just don't exist up there in a certain respect. So, for example, if two countries have a dispute, let's say France and Germany aren't getting along, instead of going to war, they can go to court. They sue. Or if you have a situation like we have in Syria, where Assad or any of the Assads around the world look like they're killing their people, instead of arming the rebels and bombing the children and precipitating what's, arguably the worst migration crisis since World War II, instead of all that happening, you just arrest them. Real simple. The global marshals come, arrest them, take them to court, have a trial, and you find the person guilty or innocent. So what the Democratic World Federalists are about is we are interested in bringing that idea back from history and bringing it into public consciousness, having it as part of the public discourse, of having the option of having this world parliament and global structures that countries have to solve their problems. I'm going to switch my teleprompter here to the next page. So for those of you who haven't heard of our organization, we're a nonprofit. We're based in San Francisco, and we're affiliated with the UN, and part of a network of about 20 organizations around the world that are working on these ideas. The thing that this network is most known for, which you've probably heard of, is the creation of the International Criminal Court. That is probably the most well-known achievement of what has been known as the World Federalist Movement. At the time these ideas were born, they were primarily focused on ending war, on eliminating war from the planet. But now, several decades later, people have realized that, wow, if you have this global parliament and constitution and Bill of Rights and judiciary and all that stuff, that there are so many other pressing global problems that these structures could be addressing as well. So whether it's climate change, pandemics, economic calamities, social injustice, that if we had these global structures, the idea is they would be able to address global problems better than the system of treaties we now have, which is largely voluntary and largely unenforceable. So what we're doing is trying to bring that back into the public domain for discussion. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can speak to me or any of the folks with this DWF name tag here at the end. As I mentioned before, we also have a literature table on our thinking, as well as the speakers' books available after the presentation. So before I bring up the speaker, I want to introduce two people. First, Jerry Tetalman, who is our development director. Jerry, his career has been in real estate, but he also, which I like, ran for Congress in San Diego against Darrell Issa. Some of you may have heard of him. But the best thing about Jerry is, let me pardon you for a second. It's not the best thing about Jerry. I realize I didn't mean that. Jerry is the co-author, along with Byron Delitsos. Where's Byron? Byron in the back, Byron Delitsos, of One World Democracy, which is one of the better books introducing people to this idea of a global democracy. So you can pick that up here as well. So Jerry is the co-author of that. So let me bring Jerry up. Jerry's our development director on the board.
Thank you, Bob. In the history of human evolution, ideas come along that are game changers. You know, if we look back in the ancient times, we had the invention of the wheel and the taming of fire and agriculture. In more modern times, we had the idea of democracy versus the kings and the dictators. We had the idea of abolishing slavery and women's right to vote. These were revolutionary ideas that changed the world. We have another revolutionary idea that people in this room have been working on a long time. Some people, maybe a new idea, but it's the idea that as humans, we can abolish war, that we can move beyond war and go to a system of law. And this is really what the Democratic World Federalist is about. It's about moving from war to law, from settling disputes not with bullets, but with ballots, with people voting. It's really how peace is brought about. If you ask yourself the question, and this, when I wrote that, co-authored that book, One World Democracy, it was to answer a question, and that question was, what is the cause of war and what is the cause of peace? If you look at places that were at war and now at peace, you look at places like Northern Ireland. They've been at war for years. They settled that with peace treaties. The people that were fighting the war are now in the parliament. They're working their disputes out through law. If you look at Europe, Europe's been at war for thousands and thousands of years. 2 world wars, the worst wars in the history of the world. They're now at peace. Why? Because they settled their disputes in parliaments, in courts. They settled it the way civilized people would. If myself and another person, we have a dispute, say myself and Roger, you stole something from me, I have a choice. I can either say guns, knives, chains, or I can say, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to take you to court. But I meant to. This is what civilized people do, is they use law. If you look at the history of the world, civilization is built on one thing. It's built on the rule of law. We can look back, and that's really the game changer, that we have an idea that's going to change the world in the sense that no longer will your allegiance be to your tribe, to your city, to just your nation, but to humanity. The idea is you're moving to humanity, you're moving to that level where my allegiance is to the world. It's to humanity, it's not to just America. America will still exist, America will still be important, but it's trading a little piece of sovereignty in return for peace in the world. We live in a very dangerous time. I grew up in the Cold War. I remember as a kid the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I remember we came very close to annihilation. And I think that when you look at that event and you look at today as Hiroshima Day, we've entered a new age where war is no longer really possible. If you have all-out war and you use nuclear weapons, there are no winners. There are no conquered lands. We've come to the end game, and the end game is we must shift our consciousness. We must move into a realm of thinking in terms of ourselves as global citizens, as terms of responsibility to protect the environment. We are threatened by two really great things, which is environmental collapse, global warming, rainforest destruction, species destruction. We're threatened by nuclear annihilation. We're also threatened by global terrorism. The idea is that we have to respond to these. And if we use the old paradigm, which is the armies and the weapons, it's not going to get us there. We have to have a new paradigm, a new way of thinking. And that new idea, the one I'm talking about that's a game changer, it's the idea of building a world democracy, a limited global government, a global federation. Most people understand the word democracy because it's a common term. It means power to the people. Most people get that. Most people don't understand the word federation, however. Federation means the United States government is a federation. That you can have two different states, like Nevada and California, that have two different sets of laws. Gambling's legal everywhere in Nevada, it's not in California. You have this in Europe, in the European Union. The European Union, they have different laws in Germany than they have in France. They're all different countries. They're not one law throughout the different federation. So it's levels of government, local government. You know, if it makes sense to have local government, state government, national government, why when we get to the global level does it make sense to have a system of anarchy? This is what we're trying to move beyond. So the world is evolving. It's an evolutionary process. We now have the European Union, the African Union, the Organization of American States, the Southeast Asian Union. We have all these different groupings. We're evolving. But it's a critical time. We have to move beyond just the level we're at. We have to make a mega leap, and that leap really is to reform the UN. The UN is supposed to be this organization that is democratic. It's not democratic. It suffers from a democracy deficit. The 5 permanent members of the United Nations are the ones that are in charge of the veto: the United States, Russia, England, France, China. It's not democratic. India has the same vote with 1 billion people as Iceland with 1 million people. The idea is to transform the UN into a true democracy, into a true effective organization. This is really the future, but we need the political will. And we have a message. We have a message of changing from a system of war to a system of law. But we need to get that message out. And it's not an easy message to get out because people have to understand it, but we require that a new way of thinking in order to get it out. We have to reach people, and ideas come to fruition and come to change because of convergence. Convergence means certain things happen. Right now, what has happened is we have this internet revolution. We have social media. We have the ability to reach everywhere. In your pocket, you probably have more computing power than they've had in the history of humankind. We're more connected. So this has laid the groundwork that we have a governable world. We just have to reach that message out. We have to amplify it. Now, I remember back when, a lot of people think that we're moving backwards in a lot of ways. England, Britain has left the European Union. You have terrorism right now that is raging. We have ISIS attack almost every day. We feel like we're going backwards in some sense. We're not evolving. But I think that we have to ask ourselves, I remember people used to talk about when I was a kid, they said, the only way you're ever going to stop war is if an alien from outer space came and invaded and everyone got together and fought them. And I always think about that. I mean, what a crazy concept. But the idea really is the world is coming together. We are fighting global terrorism. And I don't think of anything more alien than the ideology of ISIS. So I think that in some ways, if there is any positives to that, then it will bring the civilized people of the world together to fight that. And I think that when you have a message, you're trying to create peace in the world, and you're trying to create environmental protection, and you're trying to create justice in the world, it's not an easy thing, but we have to reach out. Whether we're successful or not, you have to make the effort. Sometimes, many of us in this room have worked on this for years. We laid the groundwork for something that may not happen for another generation, but it won't happen unless we lay that groundwork. So you have to begin the process. And that's really where we're at today. We have the tools, but we need to amplify our message. We need to get out there. And how do you amplify a message in politics? What is the mother's milk of politics? Come on, somebody say it. Money. Money is the mother's milk of politics. Why? Because it amplifies your message. You can get it out there a lot better. So a lot of you have come today, longtime members, longtime supporters. We do have donation envelopes here. Become a sustaining member. You know, a sustaining member, people that give on a repeat basis. Do what you can. We need people that can volunteer, be on the board, organize events, go on Facebook, whatever your skill is. We need that in this movement. And it is a movement. We are hooked in around the world to other organizations that are promoting this idea. And we have been successful. We have created the International Criminal Court. We are moving in that direction. But we need to do so much more. Anyway, I want to thank you.